We're really happy to be here and happy to have this conversation. And I'm really pleased to introduce Robert Ogan to you guys. Robert is the Director of Engineering for ByteSpeed. He's been with us for a very, very long time, but has a past history as a technology director for schools and actually managed the state contract for the state of Iowa for a while. Brings a wealth of knowledge. And the conversation we're going to have right now is a very popular one that's on a lot of people's minds. Alternatives to VMware. What do you do if you don't like where things are going, and what are your options? So without any further ado, I'm going to hand the floor over to you, Robert. Just so you guys know, if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. You can do the Q&A either way. I'll let Robert know there's a question, kind of interrupt him and make sure that we get those questions answered. And we'll also be recording this session. So if you want to reference it later or share it with a peer or friend, you definitely can, and we'll have that recording sent out to anybody that registered for the session. So, thanks again, everybody, for joining us. And Robert, it's all you.
All right. Well, thank you, Anna. I appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and share my presentation now. You can see that. Is that going? That should be good. Yeah, so just a couple little brief introduction to ByteSpeed and what we do. Been around quite a while, since '99. We do a lot of different things for the organization. We can provide consultation. We have a lot of no pressure techs that can call in and help with anything really that you've got going on with technology in your environment. We have solutions that likely fit it. We can help with the procurement, the configuration, the installation, and even the lifelong support. One really cool thing about dealing with ByteSpeed, as opposed to other resellers, is that we're a true VAR with everything that we carry. So everything we sell through you has some semblance of lifetime support. So you can always call in, even if you're not getting the help with Ruckus or any other vendor that you bought through us. You're not getting what you feel the support you should. You call us, and we will take care of it. We will escalate it, and we'll make sure everything gets done right. Our vision from the start is making sure that all of our customers are treated fairly, and that situations are made right. And we make sure that that is going through even the things that we resell. So as Anna mentioned, it's my name. I'm the Director of Engineering at Ogan. I work at ByteSpeed. I've been there for coming up in a month or so, about 10 years. Prior to that, I worked in K-12 education as a technical leader. About 15 years total at the school districts. Love education. That is probably my biggest passion is K-12 technology and making sure that anything that we do will help with fits that. Do you have a question on anything?
Sorry, guys, I didn't realize that chat was disabled. So thanks for answering in the Q&A. But Robert, your audio is just quiet. It's
Just
light.
All right,
Yeah.
I'll try to speak up. So yeah, that's what I do. That's my background is primarily in K-12. I worked for the state of Iowa for a year, putting together the contract for the state and seeing different initiatives there. I also had some experience working with the John Deere Information Systems and the U.S. Navy. So quite a breadth of knowledge across the board with technology. And one thing that we have seen lately is questions concerning the current state of VMware. Across the board, we're seeing 2 to 3x cost increases for customers. There is an increased complexity in getting renewals for VMware. They're changing their SKUs, they're changing the way the SKUs work, and increasing the cost on everything. And it just really makes a confusing mess for a lot of customers to even just get the quote that they had been getting to run the same software they've been running for a long time. The other thing that's happened is there's been a decreased direct access to support. Where you used to be able to reach out to VMware directly, now they've added a layer in there where you can no longer do that. So now most customers have to go through a distribution channel to get support. And it can create kind of a finger pointing, it can create a lot of complexity, and it's just uncomfortable for a lot of people. One of the questions is, why have they done this? Why is VMware making all these changes? Well, about 16 months ago, Broadcom acquired VMware, and Broadcom has a new mission and a new focus. And if you look out in the market and what all the trends say, the reason that they're doing this is their strategy is to focus on their top approximately 2,000 customers. So their top 2,000 customers that buy everything there is to buy from them, that is their focus. That is who they're pooling their most of their tech resources to, working directly only with those customers, and they're really taking care of those people. But the outliers are the people that ran maybe a host over here that ran free ESXi just to have a domain controller at this building and a couple of file shares. Those little ones and twos and shops, it's become almost impossible to maintain VMware in those instances. And where you do try to do it, it's cost prohibitive. So what have we seen in the market that has allowed people to still do those onesie twosie things, or even just taking the complication of all these VMware things, reduce the expenditure, and just give us back our control of our virtualization environment without having to spend a ton of money? And so these three options I'm going to talk briefly about today are the three that we see in the market as being the most popular transition options away from VMware. Those three options are Microsoft Hyper-V, Proxmox, and Scale Computing. So we'll talk about each one individually. So Microsoft Hyper-V, just as a history briefly, is a role in Windows Server. So you actually install the server operating system, and then you add a role of Microsoft Hyper-V as the hypervisor. So it is one of the few, maybe the only, that has a full-blown operating system running underneath of it. You can choose to run it as a GUI or as a command line operating system, and then the role gets installed on top of the OS where you have Hyper-V running on top. It originated in 2008 with Server 2008. Little side note, it was originally codenamed Viridian. That ever comes up on trivia, now you know the answer. It's managed through three options. You can run it through just the Hyper-V manager, just as part of the GUI when you install the role. You can run it through PowerShell, which is just the CLI inside of the Windows operating system or server operating system. And you can also do System Center Virtual Machine Manager, which lets you see all your Hyper-V management hosts across your entire cluster. Support is US-based through us. One handy thing about Hyper-V, if you buy it through us, it is the hypervisor that we use internally. All of our network admins, our system engineers, have a pretty good relationship with Hyper-V on a daily basis. So any questions you would have about the transition, this word, what's it mean in Hyper-V, how does Microsoft deal with live migration, those types of questions you can always call in and ask us, and we're available to talk you through some of those things that just might be jargon changes from you. So Hyper-V, when is it a fit? So Hyper-V is a fit in quite a few situations. One I don't know that a lot of people know is that Hyper-V really becomes a free hypervisor as long as you have at least one Windows virtual machine or more. Because when you have a Windows virtual machine, you have to pay for a Microsoft server license to be able to run that virtual machine server, Windows Server. Well, as soon as you buy that license and you turn that server into a VM license, you get 2 VM licenses for every copy of standard that you buy. And when you do that, Hyper-V becomes free. So you could make a Hyper-V role and put those 2 VM licenses on that Hyper-V host and not have to pay anything additional. So in that sense, as long as you have one or more Hyper-V or Windows Server VMs that you would have to license anyway, whether you have VMware or anything else, you still have to buy that Windows VM license. Now Hyper-V becomes a free hypervisor. So really, anytime you have more than one Windows VM that you run anyway, and Hyper-V is free, I think that kind of makes it a good fit. Being free. If you're very comfortable with Windows as a GUI, then that's also a really good indicator that Hyper-V could be the way that the transition will work seamlessly for you. Because now, whenever you're going into your controller for your entire hypervisor environment, it's just a Windows GUI. So it's a lot more comfortable. You can drive around and navigate inside of a very familiar GUI. So if you're familiar with Windows and how, especially the server OS navigates, then Hyper-V becomes very comfortable, very, very quickly. There are also lots of driver support. A lot of people run Hyper-V as their hypervisor of choice. So whenever there's a new update or something like that that changes maybe the firmware, there are a lot of people out online that are going through those changes with you and helping make sure that Microsoft is aware of any patches that need to be made for fixes. So it's a very popular hypervisor in the US, and so that makes it a lot easier to support as a community and not have that feeling that you're kind of going out there and doing something. It also has a built-in basic dynamic resource management tool called Load Balancer. So in VMware, you would have had to pay for dynamic resource management, but the basic version of it in Hyper-V is just built in and it's free. So that's kind of a nice little bonus. So those are the biggest fits for when Hyper-V is a fit. That takes us to Proxmox. So Proxmox VE is a hypervisor that runs on top of KVM. It originated in 2008 in Austria. It is managed through an integrated web-based management tool. It has some Java on the back end, kind of through a website. Effectively, it is a cloud management platform for Proxmox. And support is primarily EU-based in Europe. So when is Proxmox a fit? So Proxmox is a good fit. They have growing support. There's a lot of support forums on Proxmox. There are a lot of information on Reddit on Proxmox. So I think typically what I rate this down to, Proxmox is a free hypervisor, so that does make it attractive right out of the box. But it can be somewhat cumbersome to configure. You could spend some more time than you would with Hyper-V browsing Reddit forums, looking on the internet. If you do have maybe some custom hardware or something that's not as popular, it can be a little bit harder to find support for a driver update or something like that, a firmware update that's causing you issues with migrating a VM to a specific host. So you might have to have more local expertise, or at least somebody that's willing to commit that time and energy to really knowing your hardware, really understanding what needs to happen for you to do an update if you're going to use Proxmox, and spending a little more time on the internet. They do have support that you can purchase. It is pretty inexpensive comparatively, especially to VMware. The one thing I've really heard, it's only real negative I've heard, is that Proxmox support tends to be at times harder to get a hold of because they are all stationed for the most part in Europe. And so it can be time can be a factor in trying to sync up when you're able to get a hold of support. I rate it to, back in the day when the Windows 10 first came out, I didn't love it. I tried to install Linux, so I was really going to show Microsoft and stick it to the man there. And but really, after a month or so, I always ended up installing Windows again because of some driver thing or not being able to do a firmware update on a graphics card or whatever happened to be a new game. And so I think those are the only issues that I would see with Proxmox, is unless you have somebody committed to really looking into that, run a lot of tests, even on the Proxmox forums, they say before you roll something out in production, you're going to want to do a lot of testing, because in your environment, you could be one of the few people that's running Proxmox and that application in your environment with your hardware. So it's just something to keep in mind. Scale Computing is the other manufacturer that we offer. They have their own called Hypercore, and that runs on KVM as well. It originated in 2007. It is managed through their product called Fleet Manager, and the support is US based. You can call them anytime in the US. Their biggest issues or things that they really like to talk about are their simplicity, their availability, their affordability, and their scalability. Scale Computing, when is it a fit? So Scale, you do have to license. You pay a yearly 3-year or 5-year license to have an agreement and an ongoing license with Scale. You get that same support feature that you kind of had in the old days with VMware, where you can call Scale directly. You are important to Scale, like we all used to be important to VMware. It's kind of like going back in time and getting on with that company that really is proud of their software and stands behind their customers. Scale is a great fit. There's no surprises either on hardware. All of Scale hardware is tested at Scale, so they already test all the firmware and driver updates that they do with the equipment that they support. So there's really no surprises when it comes to hardware or making changes or updates or anything like that. Another big thing is their flexibility. So there is an extreme level of flexibility with Scale. Not only can you scale out and scale up, but you can have small clusters. The hypervisor is so lightweight that it can even run. You can have a cluster of little desktops, NUCs. You can have 3 little desktop computers at an environment that's remote, and it can have its own hypervisor and failover cluster running on just 3 little desktop computers. So it is super lightweight, and the flexibility of Scale is probably the biggest thing that is a differentiator for it, and being able to install it and talk to it just about anywhere. And again, the US-based support is super handy, and being able to work directly with Scale. One other thing that Scale brings into the conversation is hyperconvergence. So what is hyperconvergence, or is HCI? Most of us on this call likely know, but it's the integration of compute, storage, and the virtualization layers of infrastructure into a single solution architecture. So what that means is you no longer have to have your iSCSI or fiber channel switch stack attached to your SAN. All those things are all pulled within the servers and set up to have the N-1 failover all within the servers and their storage that are on board to the servers themselves. So that is hyperconvergence. It's what Scale really brought to the market to compete with things like Nutanix, who is really large in the hyperconvergence market. And they do a really good job of it. Another option is StarWind vSAN. So if you're using Hyper-V or Proxmox, is there a way to get to that hyperconverged infrastructure? There is, and it's called StarWind vSAN, or we call it ByteSpeed vSAN. StarWind is amazing. It's probably one of my favorite products that I've ever dealt with. It has a lower long-term total cost of ownership than most things out there, primarily based on the fact that the permanent license is amazing. In a date where everything permanent licenses are going away, StarWind still has a permanent license, which means that if you buy, and it's based on storage, so if you bought a 10 terabyte license for StarWind, and 5 years from now you decided to upgrade the speed of your storage to SSDs or NVMe, in all your servers, you wouldn't have to pay any upgrade fee for that license. That license would be permanent as long as you stay within the storage capacity of that license. So that permanent license is amazing. Allows you a whole laundry list of things you can do with upgraded capabilities. And it's very plug and play. And probably the coolest thing about it is it only requires 2 nodes to require a failover, live migration. So in the future, in the past, things like VMware solution would require at least 3 nodes to be able to have failover, live failover happen. But this allows you to only do 2 nodes. It can effectively create a RAID 1 of all of your local storage on each node, and that way give you failover, live migration capabilities with only 2 nodes. So that's probably the coolest thing about StarWind and its vSAN option. Just giving you comfort, and now it's 2025. This is going back a little bit. This is 2023 Hyperconverged Infrastructure Software Partner Peer Insights. And this shows you that the options that we have for hyperconverged infrastructure are on the right side. And even StarWind is one of the only ones in the top right quadrant of that partner report. So StarWind and scale computing are right up there with Nutanix and Veeam. So it gives you a lot of confidence in knowing that the solutions that we offer are market leaders and above average in market average on market. So this is kind of final thoughts. Any questions that you have, I can try to address. I also leave you here with the bytespeed.com/scale. If you want to go there, you can get further information. You can also request a demo. And we can get you online with some of the scale. We can talk about your specific environment and how it would work. And then bytespeed.com/vSAN is about the hyperconverged infrastructure through StarWind. Both of those things you can request a demo, request more information, see what we have on the website here. One thing I will touch on too, I was a little bit remiss, I missed this in going through before we get to any questions. One thing too is conversion. Conversion from one virtual infrastructure to another tends to happen. There's a lot of ways to skin that cat, but most of the time there's either a V2V converter through a company like StarWind or Hyper-V, where you can convert a VMware VM into a Hyper-V VM or Proxmox VM, whatever you're wanting to do. And then the other way that we tend to do it a lot is through backup software, whether it's Appliance or Veeam. Most of those things, depending on what your downtime availability is and the environment, will let you back up from one, say Proxmox, and then restore to another. So you can back up in Veeam, and Proxmox VM, and then convert it to a Hyper-V VM. And all of those things, we will aid you in that. So if you want help just transition a couple of VMs, or if you need help, you just want to turn it over to us and have us convert everything from any mix and match of those, Proxmox to Hyper-V or whatever. Just let us know and we can show you what that looks like.
Hey, Robert, I've got a question in the Q&A, and your audio again is in and out, but so when you lean forward, it seems like it's better.
Okay.
So the question is, what are your thoughts on Nutanix, and what alternatives support existing storage not directly tied to their solution?
So Nutanix is a good software. It's been around a long time. I guess the negative I would have on Nutanix is that it's still a very much you're kind of tied into their solution, right? So if you want to maintain Nutanix in the long term, that means that every time you would do that forklift upgrade and feed back into Nutanix and whatever they offer you for a future solution with their stuff again and again. So the only thing I would have negative about Nutanix is it is buying into that long-term perpetually licensing their software year over year environment. So if you compare that to scale or to Starwind, for example, you pay that license fee one time, and you can migrate different virtual machine or different hypervisors, whatever you want, and it will still, Proxmox will work with it. You know, VMware will technically work with Starwind. And so you have a lot more freedom with something like a Starwind than you would have being really focused and tied in to Nutanix and what they want you to do. But it's a good solution. Did that come through?
Yeah, that one actually came through very, very good. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to put them up in the chat. Thanks, Robert.
Yeah. So hopefully I got enough of the message through that I didn't just watch everybody go through my slideshows without noise.
I think if you take one big takeaway, just know that we've got a brilliant team that Robert leads here at ByteSpeed, and we're all happy to help with any alternative solutions, and we'll do our best to help you. Everybody's situation is a little bit unique, right? So just understanding what your situation is and what your specific needs is really the goal that we have. One more question there, Robert. Your three options, do they support existing third-party storage?
So Hyper-V would support existing third-party storage the best. Scale, you could make it work. And Proxmox, we'd have to have a meeting and we'd have to go through some things to make sure the specific things that you have currently would work with Proxmox. The likelihood would be that Proxmox and Hyper-V would support if you have an existing SAN or something like that that you're trying to tie in. Hyper-V and Proxmox would be the best two fits there, depending on whether you were more comfortable with the Windows GUI or kind of the Linux direct feel.
Thank you.
I feel like I flew through that. But yeah, like Anna said, to reiterate, those links that are up, the bytespeed.com/scale and /vSAN, those will get you to our stuff, let you request a web demo. You can put in your information. So if you didn't hear anything I said today, those are really good links to get a hold of and get answers to what fits my specific situation. Yeah, because sometimes you need to just talk to somebody that really understands the new stuff, and you want them to understand where you're coming from. Because you want to make sure you're not losing access to deduplication or some specific role or thing that you used on your old environment. So getting a link and getting a demo, getting a quote, we can make sure that your specific environment will allow you to do what you're wanting to do without losing any features. Yeah, whatever you want to do, that's we're here to help you try to do it as painlessly as possible, as seamlessly as possible, and always know that anything you do through us, you can always just call us and ask for help, and we'll always be here.
Thank you so much, Robert. And thank you, everybody that took time out of their day. I don't think anyone ever complains, Robert, by the way, when you cover a bunch of useful information and you're quick about it, because we all are running around like crazy. So thank you, everybody, for joining and for the questions. I hope everybody has a great day and look forward to continuing the conversations. Thanks, guys.
Take care.